Divine communication, it's something billions of people seek, but what if our modern expectations about hearing from God are completely backwards? Ancient texts suggest we've been looking at it all wrong.
That's quite a bold statement. What makes you say our understanding might be reversed?
Well, I've been studying these fascinating ancient religious texts that suggest divine communication actually worked differently in earlier times. The texts indicate that God spoke more directly to prophets then, not because they were more worthy, but because they needed more explicit guidance.
So you're saying it was more like training wheels for humanity's spiritual journey?
Exactly. The text specifically mentions that the road had not yet been walked by the footsteps of our Lord. Think of it like GPS versus having someone personally guide you. Those early prophets were essentially mapping the territory for future generations.
That's really interesting. How does this ancient understanding translate to modern spiritual seeking?
Well, here's where it gets fascinating. The text suggests that today's lack of direct divine communication isn't a withdrawal, but actually a sign of spiritual maturity. It says, "The way of life of the righteous is written down before us. We've got the roadmap now."
That's quite a perspective shift. So what's expected of modern spiritual seekers then?
The text is pretty clear about this. It says, "Whoever loves me keeps my comments." It's suggesting that understanding comes through action and commitment rather than waiting for divine messages. And there's this beautiful parallel. With the prodigal son story, God will still go out to meet those who make the journey.
You mentioned something earlier about Mary being referenced as the Ihadiah. How does that fit into this framework?
Oh, that's such a crucial point. The text presents Mary as this extraordinary example of human potential for perfection, while being careful to maintain the distinction between her as a mere creature and Jesus as both God and man. She represents the pinnacle of what humans can achieve spiritually.
That's quite a nuanced position between human potential and divine nature.
Right? And what's really powerful is how it transforms what might initially seem like a loss into something empowering. Instead of seeing the absence of direct divine communication as a withdrawal, it's actually an invitation to spiritual maturity.
So it's almost like humanity has graduated from needing constant supervision?
Exactly that. And you know what's particularly beautiful? The text maintains this promise that when we do arrive at the house of our Lord, we'll be met with the same kind of loving reception that the prodigal son received. It's not about loss, it's about growth and taking responsibility for our own spiritual journey.
That really changes how we might approach modern spirituality, doesn't it?
Well, I think it offers this incredibly empowering perspective. Instead of feeling discouraged by the silence, we can understand it as a sign of trust, like being given the keys to our own spiritual development while knowing we're not ultimately alone on the journey.
Looking toward the future, how might this understanding reshape religious practice?
I think it could lead to a more mature, responsible approach to spirituality. Rather than waiting for dramatic signs or direct messages, people might focus more on engaging with the wisdom we've inherited and actively walking their spiritual path. It's about growing up spiritually, while still maintaining that sense of wonder and connection.